we sort of touched upon this thing about which I'm very interested, which is how we measure success. And you know, I've always found it interesting, given that I kind of ended up in advertising by happenstance, that we are an industry of great hubris that defines our success by metrics that we have defined, like CPM and CPC and things like that. What does this whole fraud thing mean for that, in the context of that?
It's funny because a lot of clients didn't think about it, and I think a lot of partners and agencies haven't thought about it until it was brought up as a problem. And then as you start to dig and you start to realize what the issues are, which are generally a lack of transparency and a lack of control, you have to come up with solutions and new metrics to talk about how you're avoiding it or how you're improving it or how you're remedying those situations, which takes more time and more resources and more cost and so on. But ultimately, you should be able to enhance your buy and improve your performance and have greater success. And for the next plan and the next plan and the next plan, get smarter about it and have more confidence in what you're going to market with, that it's going to be above and beyond the metrics that you've set, and continue to meet and surpass your goals and expectations.
Okay, so give me some latitude here, because this is a proverbial problem in our industry, right? This is a consistent thematic that we have a new measure of success, like let's take OCR, right? Yeah. It's post-campaign, it's post, and it's getting it up funnel to be able to plan and buy and make it actionable. That is always the big issue that comes sort of after the fact, right?
That's what should happen.
That's what should happen, right? So, if we look at the metrics of CPC or CPM, I mean, if you follow a logic, you could find causality that one of the reasons we have such rampant fraud is because how we're defining the performance of digital media.
Right, well, I mean, but it starts with what you're planning against. So if I'm planning against broad audience segments and proxies that I'm not actually targeting in a really refined way, I mean, my expectation shouldn't be that I'm actually going to hit everything 100% of the time if I'm not asking for it. If I'm setting a sort of really broad stage, then I have to be willing to get really broad reach and broad results. If I'm trying to refine who I'm going after with particular segments and particular points of data with particular goals in mind, and I specify that, and that's not being delivered on, well, then something's got to change.
Well, but I guess where I'm coming from is that the brands and agencies with which I'm working right now, we've got these new investments, right? Not only is the lexicon of what we do changing, it's more technology than ever, but how advertisers and brands are spending their money is different. They're spending money on fraud prevention and monitoring, brand safety, et cetera. On the same time, they're spending more and more money on attribution and media mix modeling, which is becoming much more real time, right?
What we should be focusing on is the outcomes that we want to achieve. And if you plan on that, and you plan on capturing people's attention, driving some action, some sort of an engagement, or getting someone to go through some experience, whatever that outcome is that you're planning on should be absolutely what you're trading off of.
But see, I guess what I'm saying is like, you know what, screw that, because that just makes it a bigger problem to solve. Why not just say, why don't we focus on business outcomes? Like, let's get a business KPI driven digital ecosystem. I mean, if media mix modeling is becoming real time, I was talking to a media mix modeling platform a few weeks ago, and they were telling me that their clients now, they have such real time data. They're telling them to put 15-day holds on all their insertion orders so they can pull or move because they're getting such real data.
Look, if a client is as sophisticated to be able to move in real time based on sales, let's just take sales as an example, which many clients ultimately are going to attribute back to their marketing mix and then make adjustments on that. And to date, that takes months, if not years, and it's really looking back in the rearview mirror. It's not forward-looking. It's not predictable at all, particularly as the media ecosystem becomes more and more fragmented. But if I can start to optimize on that in real time and plan on it for each sort of successive effort, that's great. But if I can't, in the absence of that data, because I can't always get at sales data, if I'm a CPG, I'm relying on Walmart and Amazon and everyone else, and they're not giving it to me in real time, potentially, not today at least. So I need proxies, I need correlations. I need to know that some engagement led to some lift in something else that drives sales. And I have to focus on driving that metric. But whatever the case is, you need data to help lead the way, and you need to be willing to let go a little bit of what sort of convention you've worked with in the past, because it is driven more by tech, more by data, and that should help us to better identify opportunities and actually improve the ones that we're going after or we're creating in some cases.
So do you feel like, I mean, I guess, you know, glass half full, glass half empty, right? The whole fraud discussion in many respects is kind of looking back, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've now, you know, we've been caught up in it, found out about it, and now we're trying to react to it and fix it.
Or we're trying to prevent it in some cases. As we've gotten smarter about it, we want to stop it before it happens.
Right, exactly. So that's my point. So how do we then now sort of leapfrog and get into the prevention and actually just eliminating it in some respects?
Well, I mean, on one hand, all the clients that we work with, and Cheryl had mentioned this earlier, sort of across Viviki, we've got a process in place. You know, we work with publishers to get commitments to deliver things as such. We employ third-party ad servers to make sure that we're tracking everything in as airtight a manner as we can, and we bring in auditing and verification solutions on top of that to police the process. But that makes it complicated, and it doesn't make it seamless, and it doesn't always make it real time. And in fact, in some instances, there are people that won't accept certain tags, and Alan had mentioned someone's using one methodology and verification vendor, we're using another, so there's remediation. It just makes it messy.
So whose responsibility is that on your team to, I mean, is that like the 27-year-old?
Well, it's everyone's responsibility.
I mean, but seriously, I mean, the checklist is ever increasingly larger, right?
It's a combination in our world of our media technology team and our media activation team. And they work hand in hand to define what the parameters are, make sure they've got the right partner and methodology in place to track against what the metrics and the thresholds are that we're setting. If it's 100% in view, if it's about attention, if it's about completion, about sharing, if it's just about hitting a particular target. And it's making sure people are aligned on that ahead of the campaign, with the expectation that you might not be able to monitor in real time, or the reports are going to come in as such, and here's when you're going to have a window to make adjustments. It's not perfect, and unfortunately, it's not as seamless as we'd like it to be. But given our position in the marketplace and the relationship we have with many major publishers, sitting down with them and saying, okay, here's your scorecard, and here's where you're falling short, and here's the level of quality we need you to be up to, and we need you to make a commitment that you're going to drive that and deliver that for us. Otherwise,
are you really signing up for that though? Like, are the agencies and buying shops signing up for sort of indexing publishers?
If we don't, how are we ever going to get ahead of it? And if we don't, how are we ever going to hold the publishers accountable for what we actually need to have delivered?
Fair enough, but I mean, look, having come from your world, like the thing is, everything rolls downhill, and you guys are kind of at the bottom right now. So how do you get out from under that? Because, just sort of in a fraternal and sisterhood here, like.
I mean, that we're sisters.
Yeah. Well, I gave you the boy first, the masculine. We switched it over. It worries me because you guys are getting hammered as it is, and you're just adding on top of the pile.
Yeah, it is causing too much stress on the system. But again, getting upstream and getting a commitment from publishers and partners alike to say, here's the threshold we need to be at. Here's your credit score, for argument's sake.
Right.
Here's what we're willing to buy. Here's what we're willing to accept, and here's what we're not. And setting those standards and making sure again that there's a commitment to it on both sides. That I think will help us get ahead. If not, in absence of that, we're still stuck at the bottom.